Hello. This video shows an upcoming app called G-UDRT. G-UDRT is designed to allow pilots to practice radiotelephony anywhere. It does this by simulating fully vocalized and dynamically branching flights through varied airspace. However, G-UDRT also includes 36 learning sessions to teach everything from the very basics of RT and upwards. Following some comments on Facebook after a post by a fellow pilot, we thought we would share the learning session that discusses flights through and close to ATZs. This session appears towards the end of the app's modular learning structure, so it is more detailed than most. Hopefully sharing it here will help someone. To find out more, visit us at www.g-udrt.com.
In this session, we will review the considerations and radiotelephony required by a cross-country pilot who will fly through, over or near to an ATZ outside of controlled airspace. This session is structured such that the topic is explored in some detail to begin with. It then provides examples of the radio calls required to transit, route over and route near to ATZs at air traffic controlled, flight information service and air-ground communication service aerodromes. Remember, you can use the jump to section functionality in G-UDRT to go straight to any example that most interests you. Flight through an ATZ. ATZs can be very busy, with a wide array of traffic operating at, into and out of them. Thus, when planning a cross-country flight, it is common to plot a route that will remove any need to fly directly through one. An ATZ typically extends to only 2,000 feet above the aerodrome's level, and have a radius of either 2 or 2.5 nautical miles. Direct flight through one can usually be avoided with little impact on routing. Even if a flight is planned to avoid an en route ATZ, there remains a possibility that it will be necessary to fly through it on the day. This might be due to a low cloud base, for example. As such, a cross-country pilot should understand the rules of the air that apply to such a flight. Rule 11 states that to fly, take off or land within the ATZ, the commander of the aircraft must obtain the permission from the air traffic unit if the aerodrome has air traffic control. Must obtain information from the Flight Information Center if the aerodrome provides a flight information service. And must obtain information from the air-ground communication service if the aerodrome provides an air-ground communication service. In essence, prior to flight through an ATZ, you should ensure you are in contact with the aerodrome's ground station and have informed them of your intentions. If the aerodrome provides an ATC service, you must be in receipt of permission to enter their ATZ. At other types of aerodrome, you must be in receipt of information from the ground station sufficient to allow safe flight through their ATZ. In addition to the above, the pilot must communicate the aircraft's position and height to the ground station upon entering the ATZ and immediately prior to leaving it. A more common example would be routing close by, but remaining outside of an ATZ. Whilst such a pilot is not compelled to communicate with the ground station, it is advisable to do so. This will reduce potential impact of an accidental infringement of the ATZ, aid situational awareness for all airspace users, and allow you to obtain local information, such as traffic or weather. Also remember that aerodromes in Class G airspace with just an ATZ for the protection of aerodrome traffic are unlikely to be equipped with surveillance equipment. They will have no way to know you are there unless you announce your presence. Before we get to the examples, a quick comment on phraseology. At an ATC aerodrome you need to request a transit through their overhead. At other aerodromes it is sufficient to state your intention. So if you will enter the ATZ, we recommend request transit your overhead for an ATC aerodrome, and intend transit your overhead at other aerodromes. If the intention is to pass over an ATZ, but not actually enter it, the phrase, intend transit your overhead, is also commonly used. Typically, the ground station will use the flight's altitude to understand if it will fly through the ATZ or not. If the altitude is such that the intention isn't obvious, they may ask for clarity. Alternatively, the pilot could make it clearer by adding the phrase, "above your ATZ," to their intentions. We'll now look at two examples of radiotelephony at an ATC aerodrome in Class G airspace. Here, a pilot will route through Middletown's ATZ in the first example, then in the second, they will fly over the top of it.
Middletown radar, Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta.
Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta, Middletown radar, pass your message.
Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta, from capital city to little town, 12 miles south, altitude 1,800 feet, Sumshire 1001, request transit your overhead and basic service, ETA overhead time 20.
Golf Sierra Delta, Squawk 4252, Middletown QNH 1004.
Squawk 4252, Middletown QNH 1004, Golf Sierra Delta.
Golf Sierra Delta, identified, basic service.
Basic service, Golf Sierra Delta.
Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta, cross Middletown ATZ, circuit active, runway 20, 2 in.
Cross Middletown ATZ, circuit active, runway 20, Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta.
With that permission in hand, this pilot could now cross the ATZ, keeping a close eye out for the noted circuit traffic. Upon entering the ATZ, the pilot should report as follows.
Golf Sierra Delta, entering the ATZ, south of Middletown, altitude 1,800 feet.
Golf Sierra Delta, Roger.
This call may simply be acknowledged as here, or the controller may include follow-up instructions or traffic information. Upon leaving the ATZ, the pilot should again report this fact.
Golf Sierra Delta, leaving the ATZ, north of Middletown, altitude 1,800 feet.
Golf Sierra Delta, Roger.
Be aware that an air traffic controller might deny the request to enter an ATZ with the statement, "Remain outside of the ATZ." They may provide suggested alternative actions for the pilot. Now, let's look at the same flight, but this time the pilot decides to fly at an altitude that will keep them a few hundred feet over the top of Middletown's ATZ.
Middletown radar, Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta.
Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta, Middletown radar, pass your message.
Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta, from capital city to little town, 12 miles south, altitude 2,500 feet, Sumshire 1001, request basic service, intend transit your overhead, above the ATZ, ETA overhead time 20.
Golf Sierra Delta, Squawk 4252, Middletown QNH 1004.
Squawk 4252, Middletown QNH 1004, Golf Sierra Delta.
Golf Sierra Delta, identified, basic service.
Basic service, Golf Sierra Delta.
Next, the controller might instruct you to report when overhead, provide traffic information or some other request appropriate for the situation. But otherwise the pilot is free to continue on their journey. Remaining clear of the ATZ lowers both the pilot's and the ground station's workload. Now we'll look at two similar examples at an aerodrome offering a flight information service, in this case Little Town. In the first example, a pilot will fly through the ATZ. In the second example, they will fly around it.
Little Town information, Golf Hotel Juliet Kilo Lima.
Golf Hotel Juliet Kilo Lima, Little Town information, pass your message.
Golf Hotel Juliet Kilo Lima, from Middle Town to Big Town, 5 miles south, altitude 1,800 feet, Sumshire 1001, intend transit your overhead, ETA overhead time 20.
Golf Kilo Lima, Roger, no reported traffic, report overhead, QNH 1005.
Wilco, QNH 1005, Golf Kilo Lima.
Although asked to report overhead, the pilot still states as they are entering the ATZ.
Golf Kilo Lima, entering the ATZ, south of Little Town, altitude 1,800 feet.
Golf Kilo Lima, Roger.
Golf Kilo Lima, overhead, altitude 1,800 feet.
Golf Kilo Lima, Roger.
The pilot then makes the required call as they leave the ATZ.
Golf Kilo Lima, leaving the ATZ, north of Little Town, altitude 1,800 feet.
Golf Kilo Lima, Roger.
Now, let's look at the same flight, but this time the pilot decides to fly a route that will have them remain outside the ATZ, but close to the boundary. We'll use the notes to explore how a flight over the ATZ, but not through it, will present different RT.
Little Town information, Golf Hotel Juliet Kilo Lima.
Golf Hotel Juliet Kilo Lima, Little Town information, pass your message.
Golf Hotel Juliet Kilo Lima, from Middle Town to Big Town, 5 miles southwest, altitude 2,000 feet, Sumshire 1001, intend route 3 miles west of Little Town, outside the ATZ.
Golf Kilo Lima, Roger, no reported traffic, QNH 1005.
QNH 1005, Golf Kilo Lima.
You may be provided with additional traffic information or some other request appropriate for the situation. But otherwise the pilot is free to continue on their journey. Remaining outside of the ATZ can reduce the workload for everyone. For the last two examples we'll move to West Town, which provides an air-ground communication service. Here, the pilot will route through the ATZ in the first example, then in the second, they will fly over the top of it.
West Town Radio, Golf Uniform India Oscar Papa.
Golf Uniform India Oscar Papa, West Town Radio, pass your message.
Golf Uniform India Oscar Papa, from capital city to some town, 5 miles south, altitude 1,800 feet, Sumshire 1001, intend transit your overhead, ETA overhead time 20.
Golf Oscar Papa, Roger, no reported traffic, QNH 100 tree.
QNH 100 tree, Golf Oscar Papa. Golf Oscar Papa, entering the ATZ, south of West Town, altitude 1,800 feet.
Golf Oscar Papa, Roger.
Golf Oscar Papa, leaving the ATZ, north of West Town, altitude 1,800 feet, changing to Sumtown radar, 125.305.
Golf Oscar Papa, Roger.
Now we'll replay the same flight, but this time the pilot decides to remain at an altitude that will take them above West Town's ATZ. We'll use the notes to explore how a flight close to, but not overhead the ATZ will require slightly different RT.
West Town Radio, Golf Uniform India Oscar Papa.
Golf Uniform India Oscar Papa, West Town Radio, pass your message.
Golf Uniform India Oscar Papa, from capital city to Sumtown, 5 miles south, altitude 3,400 feet, Sumshire 1001, intend transit your overhead, ETA overhead time 20.
Golf Oscar Papa, Roger, no reported traffic, QNH 100 tree.
QNH 100 tree, will report overhead, Golf Oscar Papa.
Golf Oscar Papa, Roger.
Golf Oscar Papa, overhead, altitude 3,400 feet.
Golf Oscar Papa, Roger, no reported traffic.
Golf Oscar Papa, changing to Sumtown radar, 125.305.
Golf Oscar Papa, Roger.
This pilot is now free to continue their journey. With those examples complete, let's quickly consider some other relevant points. Unlicensed aerodromes without ATZs. Some unlicensed aerodromes can be very busy with arriving and departing traffic. As with an aerodrome with an ATZ, a pilot may decide it is good airmanship to announce their intentions if they will pass close by. The RT above is easily adapted to this purpose. Turning in an overhead. Some pilots use aerodrome overheads as turning points along their route. The calls above can again be adapted to this purpose. For example,
Golf Uniform India Oscar Papa, from capital city to little town, 5 miles south, altitude 2,500 feet, Sumshire 1001, intend turn in your overhead, above the ATZ, departing to northeast, ETA overhead time 20.
Finally, let's consider height versus altitude when overhead an aerodrome. Traffic in the circuit, or indeed arriving, may be operating on QFE. That is, showing height above ground level on their altimeters. As we've seen in the above examples, aircraft transiting the aerodrome's vicinity will often be on QNH, showing altitude above sea level on their altimeter. Consider the following scenario. An aircraft transits an ATZ at 1,500 feet indicated by the QNH. Another aircraft is in the circuit at 1,000 feet as indicated by the QFE. The aerodrome itself is 500 feet above sea level. Thus, both aircraft are at the same altitude and at best, the transiting aircraft may cut across the other, at worst, a collision could occur. Always be mindful of circuit height, and the aerodrome's own elevation when routing close to one. That is the end of this session. Listen to it again as required, or progress to another.